Yes, I made a big decision. I gave it all to Christ. I just had to get it right. He means so much to me. Now I know why he's testing me.
Welcome to the He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not podcast with Barbara Pettis, founder and CEO of Better Place Ministries. Barbara's passion for this cause is driven by her own personal experiences with domestic abuse in both her childhood and as an adult. She is committed to helping others achieve their goals of excellence and has devoted numerous hours to educate and empower individuals that are affected by domestic violence. Her enthusiasm for this cause is infectious, and it represents her personal zeal in life. And now, here's your host, Barbara Pettis.
Welcome, you guys, to another episode of He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not. I missed you guys last week. Let me tell you, I did not know what to do with myself. My whole day was off. I really missed you guys. So welcome. I'm so happy and excited to be back today. We have a special show for you. And I can't wait because it's going to be new information for me as well. So I cannot wait to get into it. And you guys know each month we have a giveaway. For those of you that share the podcast with at least 3 to 5 people, we give you a gift. This, for July, the winner is Shalonda Lewis. Shalonda, I don't see you on Facebook yet, but you are the winner of the July prize. So we will definitely connect and I can get it to you. So you guys listen. I am asking you to follow me on Instagram, Better Place Ministries. Follow me on Instagram. I'm asking you to follow me on Twitter at B Pettis Ministry. Like my Facebook page, Better Place Ministries. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Better Place Ministries. Email me if you have any questions or anything that you want to talk to me about. Email me at ministriesinfo@gmail.com. And then go visit my website, www.bpministries.org. While you are there, go ahead and purchase your book, From Pain to Purpose. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. All right, so listen, we're also looking for donors, you guys. My birthday is August 30th. The gift you can give to me is become a donor. Be a donor. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so it's tax deductible, and any amount will help. We are trying to raise funds for different functions that will be going on. And a lot of times when the shelters are full, I place women into hotels. So we need your help. We need your help to help and keep these women in safe dwellings, in safe places. There are so many women and children out here that need our help. So we're looking for sponsors. If you want to sponsor a show, get in touch with me. My office number is 469-364-1984. Again, the email address is ministriesinfo@gmail.com. We need your help. Together, we can make a difference. I truly believe that. I don't know if any of you guys do, but I truly believe that we can make a difference. You guys know that my desire, my prayer, my hope is to open up a couple of safe houses. I'm working towards that goal. I want to honor my grandparents because they were my safe house when I was going through abuse. So I want to honor them that way. And I told you guys before that it will be called Gladys House. That was my grandmother's name, Gladys. So it will be called Gladys House. And, that's my ultimate goal, to open up some safe houses and eventually somewhere down the line, obtain some property and build a facility. That's my goal. And I just truly believe with every fiber of my being that it's going to happen. It may be slow coming, but it is going to happen. All right. So I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Susan Foster. Susan, welcome to He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here today. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Susan. She's a mother, an author, a speaker, a coach, an advocate, hoping to equip men and women to recognize the abusive, charming. I'm sorry, let me slow down. To recognize the abusive, charming impossibles in their lives. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. By, by sharing her personal story of survival and faith in her book, Charming Impossibles, How Ordinary Angels Free and Hopelessly Stuck.
It's Charming Impossibles, How
Okay.
Ordinary Angels Help Free the Hopelessly Stuck.
The Hopelessly Stuck. That's my fault.
That's okay.
Susan reveals how the web of confusion is spun around abuse and works to inspire healthy change for men, women, and children to help them overcome and heal. I went to her website and I saw some things that I highlighted. I love this quote she has that says, to be an ordinary angel, create a legacy of hope and love for others. And then I read, she said, I've learned that oftentimes secrets or untold truths can be the root of many great people's demise. By boldly living out individual authenticity and truth, no matter how outrageous, we diffuse the ability for others to use our past against us. I love that. I highlighted that. And then she had another. She had a lot. I picked these three. Scars are but a memory without the feeling and shame attached. Scars remind us we learned something and had the courage to move on. Our scars are what we use to encourage others. Embrace them. I love that. I love that. I embrace mine. I have many, and I embrace them, and I use those scars to empower other women.
Absolutely.
I use them to let them know, do not be ashamed of your scars. I understand that beautiful things come out of scars.
Yes, they do.
So I want to again welcome you, and I want you to, she's going to educate me today too, you guys. So she has a story to tell, and Susan, go ahead and introduce yourself more, and then let's go into it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Barbara, for having me. This is a real privilege, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, the title, Charming Impossibles, I don't know if you all can see that, but here's my book, Charming Impossibles, How Ordinary Angels Help Free the Hopelessly Stuck. And I title it Charming Impossibles. Charm is their lure. Charm is what they use to draw us in. Mm-hmm. And then impossible to please is their method of control and manipulation. And they just leave their victim constantly. They're moving the guideposts, their goalposts, their standard is constantly changing. And so you just never can get, it's impossible to please. And that's what keeps us in that cycle. Mm-hmm. And then the charm comes back. And so then we think, oh, it's all getting better. And so there we go. Yes. And so it's really important what you're doing, and I appreciate it, because this education on even the fact that a narcissist exists, the way an abuser works needs to be taught. Narcissism isn't taught in universities. It's not taught in school for the psychology. It isn't taught in law school. And we have professionals with initials behind their name that are therapists that do not understand narcissism.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And it's frightening.
Yes.
And so anyway, my story begins with I had no trauma. I had a very charming upbringing. I just had two parents that were very supportive, a brother, and I really didn't know what trauma or life challenges were and until I got married. And I was reared in a liturgical church, so the Episcopal Church. And my high school years, I became a lot more interested in what the Bible had to say. And so I became very involved in non-denominational Bible churches, the Baptist church, nothing radical. But I wanted to follow it and follow it completely. And it was a pure love for God. It really was. And so I found this young man who knew the Bible better than I did, which was one of my criteria. Okay. I need to have a leader that I could follow.
Yes.
And so I fell into his grip and the ability to quote scripture. I've learned now that, you can pretty much make that scripture say all sorts of things. So anyway, that was his method of manipulation for me, and I was drowning in it. And I was married for 21 years. We had 4 beautiful children. And I watched women try to leave similar situations and lose custody of their children in the process. And in both communities that I lived in where we were rearing our children, I saw this happen. And so I was afraid to leave until my kids could have a voice in the court system. And what I began doing is when they were being abused, I would say, this is abusive. This is not okay. And it's okay that you feel this way. And you just let me know when you're ready to leave, because I'm not leaving one of you behind. And one would say, well, I'm 75% ready. Let me know when you're 100. And so one day all the stars aligned, and they were all young teenagers. I hadn't worked in 21 years. And we loaded up a U-Haul. He was out of town, and we disappeared from the youth group, their Christian school, their life. And so we drove 4 hours north to my brother's upstairs. So you had Gladys, I had my brother and his wife and family, and they allowed us to park up there for a while until we could just figure out how we were going to make it. And it's a very difficult journey. It's a tremendous what you want to do to help these women, because I don't know how they do it when they don't have family that can help support them, because it's nearly impossible. You're traumatized even more once you leave. The thing about hindsight is there is no hindsight until it's behind you. And you can't see it when you're in it. And I felt so much shame from that for so many years, because why didn't I see it? But you can't see it when you're in it.
That's right.
But boy, as soon as I removed myself from it, layers began to just be revealed, and I began to see what was happening. But it is fascinating to me, the principle behind hindsight.
Yes.
And so during that time, I felt, and I'd always been confident, self-assured, liked myself. But once I left, I felt like I bore the scarlet letter. I felt I had no worth. The only worth I had was that my children had worth. And that's what kept me going. But my friends, my family, they could not convince me that I had worth. And it wasn't until I was helping a friend with a nonprofit event, and I happened upon this newspaper while we were waiting at a place of business, and I opened it up, and there's the picture of my old boyfriend. And I said, that's my old boyfriend. Well, the lady said, who? And she told me I just parked in his parking lot, and his building was right over there. I hadn't seen him since I was in my 20s. And this is in the book, and it's kind of the light part of the book is I go back to him. And what's fascinating is he was one voice that I would listen to. And if you think I have value, if you think I have worth, then maybe I do. And he spoke life back into me and really helped bring me back to life and just really carried me for a couple of years. But during that period of time that I was trying to figure out then, how did this happen to me?
Yes.
How did I let this happen to my children? And how in the world did this happen to me when I came from the upbringing that I had? And it didn't matter where I was. I'd be at a business networking event. I could be at a bar. I'd be at a church. A social gathering. I was telling anybody and everyone, when you're in that moment, in that state of trauma, you don't even have natural barriers. You don't even can't have them. I was just raw. And it was through that process of sharing that with men that men began to say to me, how did it happen to you? How did it happen to me? And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Tell me more. And it was these 3 key men. One was an international attorney who worked for a billionaire.
Wow.
One was a top surgeon in his field. And one was a former Marine, then CEO. And that man said to me, I had no defense when she came at me with a broken bottle or scissors.
Wow.
And one of the doctor would sleep in a bedroom behind a locked door with a shotgun. He'd had lamps thrown at him, all sorts of things. And I had no idea this could happen to a man. And it was through them telling me that their stories that I began to think to myself, well, maybe if can happen to a man like that, then maybe I can forgive myself. And it was through them sharing their stories with me, I began to kind of heal a little bit. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not so bad after all. So then I would go around telling everybody their stories. You won't believe this. And I would describe what happened to these men. And I would get one of two reactions. One would be, well, they need to grow a set up. You know what? I mean, my wife ever, I'd get that.
Mm-hmm.
But even more than that, I would get, it happened to me too. I've never told a soul. This happened to me. This happened to me. And I started hearing it. The more I shared about men, the more men came forward. Powerful men, strong men, confident men. You'd never know it. And none of their friends and peers knew it.
Wow. What amazes me about that is the fact that they decided to share their story with you and they didn't fight back. That gives me hope, because that tells me that I guess they were raised not to hit a woman. I don't know.
Absolutely,
yes,
they were, and they would never, and they never would. Absolutely, it is. There are just. I mean, I think of my own two sons.
Yes,
and they're just tender and they're precious. I could see this happening to them easily if they weren't prepared and taught. Because don't you remember on the playground? I mean, the mean girls.
Yes,
absolutely. I mean, there were just as many, if not more, mean girls, and there were bullies.
Right.
And so they just grow up, and they get a lot more crafty. And there are, this is not a gender issue. It's not a racial issue. It is not a socioeconomic issue. It is a human issue.
Absolutely.
And the more I speak out about it, the more I realize it's in my social circle.
Yeah.
As well as in a man's social circle.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. And, one time I was speaking to a group of, it just happened that they were all African Americans, and the woman who had me speak said, don't share that story about men with them. They're not ready for that. Well, I knew her really well, so I did it anyway. And you know what happened? It was really amazing is this one older, precious lady said, well, how do you like that? I never knew that I had that much in common with a man like that. Only I lived in an old shanty and drove a beat-up Cadillac. But you know what? It is bringing people together, my sharing this story. And then I went back to those three men I told you about that I wrote about.
Okay.
After I wrote about them. I did not disclose their identity.
Right.
And I went back to them and I said, I want to tell you something. I wrote about you. And I want you to know that it has brought so many men to my attention that this has happened to them. And where are you now? This was like almost 10 years later, 8 years later. And each of them had come and healed and had beautiful lives and had redeveloped relationships with their kids, or they were in the process of it. And I asked that international attorney, I said, have you ever told anybody what you shared with me? And he said, let me think about it a minute. And he said, no. He said, now I am dating a woman and I shared with her enough. But he said, no, I've never told anybody what I went through like I shared with you. And I was a perfect stranger. And I said, so you healed all alone? He said, yes, I did. And I said, does it help you to know that this has happened to countless other men? And he said, yeah, it really does. I said, would you ever want to meet them? Would you be willing to meet them? And he said, yeah, I would. That would be helpful. And so this book launched right as COVID launched. Okay. It was April of last year. And my son is a manager at a steakhouse, Charleston Steakhouse. And there's a bunch of guys around the bar, And so right before COVID, it was in full force. I went to the bar and I was peddling my books. All right, everybody, buy my book, And they all bought. And then COVID hit really strong and they shut the restaurant down. I get a phone call from one of those men. And he said, would you come and meet me on the patio? I'm bringing my son. I read your book. And I said, yes, I will. So I met them, and his son was 21 years old. And he said, I just want you to know this book helped me so much. The man said this.
Okay.
And the son said, I had no idea now I understand what happened to my dad. And this has brought us back together, and it's healing our relationship.
Wow, that's awesome.
So then he said, would you come back next Tuesday? I went, we had book club every Tuesday outside on the patio. I had as many as 15 men there.
I love that, because I would think that they feel a sense of shame like we do.
Beyond us even. I mean, think about it. They don't even have a voice. You know, I struggled with that too, because I would have people, my dearest best friend had a Bible study, and no one in her Bible study believed me. And we had known each other since we were 12 years old, but I didn't look abused.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yes,
And
I get
so
that.
They didn't believe it. And so I know what that's like to not be believed.
Yes.
I even had people say, tone yourself down a little bit. Don't look so good. I'm like, I finally am free.
Right?
And I want to be able to live my best.
Right?
And so it's funny. It's strange, but I relate to the men in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And I relate to the rejection of the message.
Mm-hmm.
And then I relate to just the shame that we all suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of us who suffers this, it is an enormous hurdle to overcome, is that shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hit on something a few minutes ago. You said nobody believed you. A lot of times that's why women stay. And I guess men stay because nobody believes them. And then if you told them, especially a man, no one, they're going to like, yeah, right, dude. You know, nobody is going to believe them. That's a lot of reason why people stay and go back to these abusive relationships.
Absolutely.
This
Or
is
children.
amazing.
You
Yes.
think about children, they aren't believed.
Yes. Yes.
And they have no voice in our court system.
Don't even get me started on the court
Right.
system.
I know it.
Yeah, I actually started a petition this last week.
I saw that. Tell us about that, because I'm interested in this.
So what happened was I was following this story about this guy that had abused his girlfriend, as he had beat her so much so that she was in the hospital, and they allowed him to make bail. He got out and he killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? Enough is enough. So I started a petition for better laws, and I'm going to take it to our senators.
Well, I'll jump on your bandwagon on that one.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, I think what really needs to happen too is law schools must have required teaching about narcissism and how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
These manipulative abusers they all do it the same way. Once you
Yes.
learn it, you get it.
Yes. Yes.
Then it makes it's such chaos, and it doesn't make any sense to someone who doesn't think that way.
Right.
And I think this is true for all of us. You know, the thing about trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and especially a child, and I think about Simone Biles, and my heart just breaks for her,
Yes.
because I think trauma, the thing about trauma is we have these file cabinets in our head, in our brain.
Mm-hmm.
But when something happens that's traumatic, that there's nowhere for that to be filed, because we don't even know what it is,
Yes.
it just swims around in our head and creates chaos.
Yes.
And it allows for it to happen again and again because you don't know what it is.
Right.
And, you know, these children or young people who are sexually abused, that trauma, our bodies will erase it or cause us to have like a blackout.
Yes.
And people don't understand this. I get it now. I used to not understand that. Like, how do you not know? How do you not remember this? Well, our bodies shut it down to protect us because it's too much. And now I get it, and there's all kinds of evidence that proves this. And so for her to have gone through everything that she was going through, on top of she just faced that only a year ago, and carried the banner of it's not enough to just have the abuser accountable, but the enablers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway.
Absolutely. I get it. I guess when
I get a sidetracked on that, but I had to bring that up
But no,
because I'm
I'm
so
glad
proud of
you
that girl. I
did.
think she's such a champion.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful. And I want people to get off of her back. Let me just say that. Get off of her back. Now we'll go back to the
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was writing my book, there was so much that I didn't remember because I guess I had buried it. And so I honestly prayed and I asked God to bring those things back to my memory because I wanted my book to be truth, So I had to relive all of that stuff that I had buried. I had to relive all of that. And it was very painful. And if we don't have a way out, if we don't get the counseling that we need, if we don't have the support system, we self-medicate. I did. I became an alcoholic. I used drugs. So I self-medicated because I didn't feel that I had another avenue, So I encourage women and men now. And a lot of my friends have all been telling me, you should incorporate men. And I'm like, yeah, but we need the counseling. Women and men and children need counseling. I just read an article yesterday. Young lady got killed in front of her 5-year-old child. And the news media will say the child wasn't affected. Yes, that child was.
Absolutely.
That child saw her mom die.
Yes, absolutely.
She's affected for the rest of her life.
And I would like to say, I don't know that you buried that story or your body did that for you. So
I hadn't thought about
something
it that
to think
way.
about that way. But, sometimes that's what our bodies are so intelligent. We don't give them enough credit. Our bodies, our brains, our body, they're just such high-tuned machines.
Yes.
And when something is so difficult, you can't handle it, your body will block it out for you.
Yes. Yes.
To protect you. It's too much. So just there you go. There's a little nugget of possibility.
I'm
I don't
learning.
know. Yeah. Right.
Wow. I want you to talk about your son.
Okay. So my son, I have 4 children, and my youngest is Marshall. And Marshall, at the age of 12 years old, came out of his bedroom one day and he goes, I see what Dad's doing. I see what he's doing. I'm going to go confront him. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Oh, no, Marshall, listen, don't do that. You're right about what you see, but you don't go confront him. You just lock that away and you observe it, but you do not go confront. And he goes, no. And he just squared those little 12-year-old shoulders, and he was marching down there like a soldier. And I was like, well, if you're going to go do this, I'm doing it with you, but I'm going to be there with you. But you need to understand something. You cannot handle confronting him. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't having it because he was the seeker of truth. He always was. And he just had to see what was true. And boy, he was going to stand for it no matter what. And on the way down, his sister, I said, here's what he's doing. She said, oh no, oh no. And she stood outside the window with her dad to his back to her to support him. And that child was berated and nearly verbally destroyed in that encounter. And it was probably 2-3 hours of twisting half-truths, accusing him of being ungrateful and spoiled and all of these things, rather than accepting the correct blame without going into it. You can read about it. Mm-hmm. And so it was after that my daughter said he was never the same. And I asked him to read a book about anger and resentment, to try to get him to heal. And he was not a reader, and he had ADD, which is another sign of trauma, can be. Mm-hmm. And I said, write a report. He wrote a full page about, he understood exactly and he said he was angry because of some things that had happened to him, and that he was suicidal, and that it's because of his friends that he hasn't done it because he didn't want to hurt them. This is a 12-year-old. Wow. So I began to really try to nurture him, and that was when I knew we were close to time to leave. And we left the month after he turned 14. I was pretty confident that a 13-year-old would have a voice in court. I now know that's not necessarily true, but I thought that. So I thought, well, if we can get him to 14, he'll really have a voice. And we fled. But so much emotional damage had happened to him by then. So that was this foundation that we were now trying to build healing on top of. But it was as though he had gone through this little pact with himself, and he had decided, I'll never talk again. And he almost became like a mute. He couldn't talk. And once we got away from the abuse, I would say, he wanted to go to a store, and I'd say, well, call and find out what the hours are. Mom, I can't talk. I said, well, you can talk. You can, and he had to come out of it. So it took years for him to really get his voice back, but he did.
Okay.
And he graduated from high school, and he ended up in a very good, lucrative job with AT&T. And his dream his whole lifetime was to have a motorcycle, a crotch rocket, Ninja, Crazy, Yamaha, Kawasaki, whatever it is, motorcycle. And he wrote about it. He had a little toy that he would put on his dresser to encourage himself that one day I'm going to have my dream. And for his 20th birthday, he showed up at his birthday party to surprise us with the gift to himself, a crotch rocket Ninja motorcycle. Paid for, insured, had already gotten his driver's license at 20.
Wow.
Well, about a month later, I get a phone call. Mom, I'm in the hospital. I just had a motorcycle accident. I'm about to go into surgery. Is there a nurse around? Ma'am, is this a matter of life and death? Marshall, do you have any final words for your mom? I love you and I appreciate you. Click. And off went my son. And the long and short, and this is in both of these books, is that Marshall was a miraculous survivor of this accident. And so much so that he was asked by the hospital, John Peter Smith Hospital, to go speak on behalf of Texas Trauma 1 units to the state legislature. And so Marshall was the only non-medical person there. He was kind of like the grand finale. He was 21 at the time and gave testimony to how they saved his life. And then it was shortly after that that Marshall took his own life. And I write about ordinary angels helping us because I believe we all have so many ordinary angels. And they're just people, they're broken like we are, that come on our path and help us. And Marshall had them too. But, and I've had people ask me, why do you think you have so many? And I think we all do. But you have to have eyes to see them, and you have to be looking for them. And Marshall had them, but he couldn't see them. He couldn't see them for who they were. And he was looking through a broken filter, a filter of you're guilty until proven honest and innocent and real and authentic. You're a betrayer unless you can prove to me you're not. He couldn't trust anyone. And so he had this filter that he put everyone through. And I was one of the few that he trusted. And so it was, he just had such trust issues.
Was that because of his dad?
It was because of his dad and because of himself. I didn't see my dad. I went through that too. Well, how can I trust myself again? I didn't see him. I thought he was
okay.
I thought he was this good person.
Okay.
And so he wasn't sure he could even trust himself. So he was just almost paranoid. I was too after I got out of this, kind of like, do I have a good sense of judgment? Can I even trust me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he was in that place. And, but it was the responding nurse at in the emergency room who befriended Marshall and happened to have the same motorcycle and was placed in his life to take him to the next level. And he wanted to mentor him. He had plans to mentor him with his group of men that were racers, but they would race on a track with safety precautions. Okay. And it would have all been a dream come true for him. And this man's name is Ever Gomez, and he was the nurse at the time in the ICU. And so I didn't really know to the extent that Ever had befriended Marshall. But after Marshall had was cleared from the hospital, they actually kept in touch. And I didn't know about this until after Marshall's passing. And I was looking through the phone, and I was looking at text messages, and I was just trying to reconnect to my son when I saw these text messages between he and Ever. And I realized, oh my gosh, this man really tried to befriend my son. And I had taken care of all of his belongings except for this wrecked motorcycle. And so I said to him, I texted him, and I said, would you take it? You can have it for parts, or maybe you can use it. And he said, sure, I'll take it. So I met him, and I gave it to him. And he refurbished it. He called me one day, and he said, what's his favorite color? And I said, green. What's his birthday? March 3rd. So he refurbished Marshall's motorcycle into a green racing bike, and he races it for mental health awareness.
Oh, wow.
And he surprised our family, and this is Ever with Marshall's refurbished bike. I don't know if you can see this, but isn't that amazing?
That is awesome.
And it used to just be a black bike, just a solid. Awesome. And so what I hope happens in the reading of this second book is that people see that when you're at your lowest place, be encouraged, because breakthrough is imminent.
Yes, it is. Yes,
it is always imminent. And when you were at that really low place, that's your sign. Right. And Marshall was there. And if he had just pushed through, he'd be living his dream. So that's the story behind that.
Wow. That's an amazing story. Now, do you stay in touch with Ever?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. He created, so this is called Inside His Locked Box.
Okay.
The Marshall Racing Project 33 story. And so he created this Marshall Racing Project 33.
Okay.
And we're about to have another event where it's for a mental health awareness.
Okay.
And it's an exhibition bike now, and he races other bikes, but he'll always have Marshall's bike out there. So Marshall's always with him. And yes, Ever is like family. Are you kidding? He's like my, yes, I love him.
That's wonderful.
And there's another really fun story. Well, if I have time, I'll tell you.
Yes.
The other ordinary angel in Marshall's life, I met the week that I lost Marshall. And I knew up until then, something about losing a child to suicide, oftentimes parents have no idea, or they're really not in tune to their pain and what's really going on with them. But with Marshall, I was. He was constantly calling me, begging me to let him go, and going through explaining everything, what he's feeling, what he's doing, and everything I would ask him to do, he would try. And he'd finally say, "Are you through trying yet, Mom? Are you okay? Are we done yet?" No, we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying. And the place that he stopped himself was, I'm not getting professional help because I don't want the stigma. And so Ever really is working toward fighting stigma, because he did not want that. So I was very aware of how severe it was for Marshall. And there was a women's event that I chose to go to just for myself. And I was very heavy-hearted. There was one man there, and his wife was on the board, but he had created the logo. So I go to him and I say, "Let me meet your husband." And she says, "Yeah, here, Barry, talk." And so he said, "Well, what do you speak on?" I said, domestic abuse. He said, "I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I recently did the research to find out how much it would take to kill a man. I took enough medicine to kill 4 men, and I'm a miracle. I shouldn't be standing here." And I said, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why you're telling me that. Because my son's home suicidal. Will you go talk to him? He said, "Right now?" This is a perfect stranger. "Yes, right now." He said, "It's after 9:00 at night. And are you going to tell him I'm coming?" And I said, "No. And he may not let you in, but please try. Please try. Will you please go see him?" So he did. And about 2 hours later, he called me and he said, "You've really raised a really fine young man, and he just doesn't know what he believes about God." And he I told him, I said, son, you're a miracle. You shouldn't be here. I'm a miracle. I shouldn't be here. You just opened the door to a strange black man, and we're sitting here on the couch talking about God. He said, son, God sent me. What more do you need?
Wow.
The next time I saw Barry was at Marshall's viewing. And Barry was the last person Marshall saw face to face.
Wow.
And I'm there and I see Barry coming through. And this is October. It's not hot, but he is profusely sweating. And he comes to me and he just says, I failed. And I said, oh, no, you didn't. Oh, no, you didn't, Barry. I said, you want to know what you did, Barry? But for you, this mother'd be shaking her fist at God, saying, why didn't you do something on behalf of my son? I said, you were right. You were right when you said God sent you. And I thought he sent you for him, but he sent you for me.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful.
So it's Barry, Ever, and me. We're family.
That is powerful.
It is, isn't
Oh my
it?
gosh. And a lot of people don't see the signs because I tried to take my life twice. Once when I was in high school, I downed a bottle of pills and finished it with a fifth of vodka. And lay down like, okay, let's go,
Wow.
I just got sick to my stomach. I threw up what felt like 2 hours. Did not die. I'm like, stupid, you can't even kill yourself right.
Yep.
Then as an adult, I tried again. Same thing, pills and vodka. And I'm like, okay, all right.
Well, I'm glad you weren't successful.
I am too.
I'm glad you're here.
God has me here for a reason. That's why I'm very
Yes, he
passionate
does.
about what I do.
Yes.
Very passionate about it because if we make it through, and I think you said it earlier, if we just get over the hurdle, we'll be okay because there is life after abuse.
That's right.
There is life after the hurt, after
Yes.
the pain. There is life. And, I'm not in a relationship now by choice because I have trust issues, but I'm living my best life. I'm very, very happy.
You know what I think is so powerful is that you're willing to tell everything. And you quoted me earlier from my website, that one quote about that. But the power in telling everything
Yes.
is that then you can't say to yourself, but you don't really know me.
Right.
Once you get everything out and you can share, every ugly, gory detail, it is so empowering because then people who then accept you can accept their love and their acceptance. I think that's one of the things that holds so many of us back from feeling loved or even being able to accept someone's love is that we really know you don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can you love because you don't really know? If you really knew, you wouldn't feel this way about me.
Yeah.
I was convinced of that, which is why I just vomited all over everyone the truth to try to convince them that they don't like me. And in the end, I realized, look at all these people who know all of this garbage about me and they still like me. They still love me. They still accept me. In fact, they respect me.
Yes. Yes. And you don't tell your story for sympathy. You tell your story to help somebody else because just like you've run across several people that said, you know what? I've been through that. Or you know what? I know somebody that's going through that. So I tell people, I don't tell my story for somebody to say, oh, bless your heart or, oh,
No.
I'm so sorry. No, I'm telling you because I can help someone else. Somebody sitting in the audience listening, somebody viewing is going to say, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one.
Exactly. Why do we always feel like we're the only one? I said that
Yes.
so many times to myself. I felt like I was the only one.
Yes.
Because you're not telling your story. Now that I've told it so many times, I realize the thousands around me who have been through the same thing, but I would have never known. They would never have chosen to be vulnerable with me
Yes.
and tell me that that's their story too, had I not first
Right.
told mine. And I think really in the beginning, we tell our story not to heal others, but to heal ourselves.
Yes, that's what my book did for me.
Absolutely.
You know, it brought about some major healing. Yeah, because there were things that I did not want to remember. You know, I've been raped twice in my life. You know, so there were things I just did not want to remember. But once I did, and I started writing the book, it became therapy.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, I got this, you know? And so I freely share now. I freely tell people, listen,
No shame.
No shame.
No shame.
None at all. Don't be ashamed of what your past doesn't dictate your future.
No.
You know, if my past did, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Your past does not dictate your future. And God spares us to help others. I truly believe that. I truly believe that He spares us, and he already knows what we're going to go through. He knows. You know, but He's right there with us, and He allows these things to happen to strengthen us so we can strengthen others. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so very grateful for that.
Me too.
You know, and I'm so determined. I'm so determined to get these safe houses I want. I'm so determined to get the property I want, to build a facility, because there are people out there that need women like you and I, and men that will say, hey, I'll be your voice until you can find your own. I'll be your voice. I'll fight for you until you can fight for yourself.
Yes.
You
I
know?
really admire you that you're willing to tell the man's story too, because I was listening to Gretchen Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
She was speaking about, you know, the abuse in the workplace. And I went to her publicist and I said, oh, I'm writing a book. And this was when I was in the process. But I said, I also share about men. And this woman, I don't know her name, but she just looked at me and she said, well, why would you do that? They're our enemy. And I really feel such compassion about, you don't have to advocate or to stand for one thing doesn't mean you have to hate and just completely despise another.
Yes.
I don't know where we've come by this great divide that in order to be for something, you have to be completely against another. And it is very divisive and dangerous in our society today to have that mentality on anything.
But, you know, that comes from needing to be healed from something. You know, that's where that, because I was there, you know, it's like, I don't care anything about what men are going through. You know, but I needed to be healed from my trauma and what I had gone through. So that's the voice that I hear when you say that woman said that there's something that she needs to be healed from.
Right. And we need that same healing in racial issues and, you know, political.
Yes.
You know, we don't have to have this great divide between us.
Right. Absolutely. All right, we are, let's see, it's 6:49. This time goes by so fast when we're discussing topics. Is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Well, I just want to say that anyone who wants to buy the book,
yes,
they're available on Amazon. Mm-hmm. You can go to my website, SusanEFoster.com, SusanEFoster.com, and you can find how to purchase the books there. And I'm excited to, you know, get the message out of hope.
Yes. And I don't want this to be the last time you and I connect. I want us to...
It's the beginning.
Yes, it is. I want us to, you know, do some things together.
Love that.
Get out here and
I like what you're trying to do politically. I really want to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm so sick and tired of these awful laws that we have. They do not protect women and children. They just don't. You know, and I get and I know that
it's going to come through education, though.
Yes.
Really educating.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that men are being abused as well, and they need that safe place, though, that safe haven as well, but statistically, it's the women and the
No.
children. It's not?
No.
Okay.
I don't agree with
miss
that.
it. Okay.
So here's what I would say to that is men statistically don't report anything.
No. What I was going to say is that it's the women and the children that statistically are getting murdered. Now I do.
Okay.
Now I do know of
Getting murdered. Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I just thought you meant victims.
No,
I jumped on that too soon. Yeah.
No, I do have a friend where her son was murdered by his wife in a domestic violence situation, but the numbers show that it's more
Of deaths,
women.
absolutely.
Yes. So yeah, I'm wanting to dig a little more into men and abuse, and I want them to speak up. Because another man needs to hear it. Another man needs to know that they're not alone.
Well,
so I want them to speak up.
Yeah, they're going to need to find one another first, and kind of rally together first.
Yes.
I think they're still afraid,
Right.
But that will be powerful.
Right. It absolutely
And
will.
the Family Place of Dallas is the first shelter in Texas to house men,
Yes.
and they have been full.
Yeah, I know. I sit on the faith-based board, and so when we meet, I know that they're full. Yeah, that's amazing to me.
It is amazing.
It's amazing.
And, when
to
their
me.
first one was a professional player.
I did not know that. Did not know that.
So it's a problem,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful that we can come together, lock arms, and bring out awareness and educate, and hopefully make some change.
Yes, my organization, we're actually trying to put together a domestic violence walk at the end of, when did we say? End of September, I believe we said. We met last night. So we're trying to put together a domestic violence walk. And so we'll be advertising that real soon and hoping that we get the turnout that we want.
Let me know. I'll walk.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're going to walk.
Maybe we'll get Marshall's motorcycle out there.
Yeah. Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Walk, skate, ride bikes, whatever. We're taking a stand because I believe that together we can make a difference.
Yes.
I truly believe that.
That's great.
All right. I want to give you the final words before I go into my final spiel. So.
Okay. Well, I will say that one of the lessons of Marshall's motorcycle is that there is really no failure. And when you chase after a dream, there's a risk. And your dream, once realized, is never what you first imagined. But there's a process in the dream. And there's the dream, and then there's a crash of the dream, and then there's the rebirth of a dream. And that is the cycle of our dream. And so when we crash, we should never look at it as failure. It is part of the process. And so just know that you are not failures. We don't have failure in our life necessarily. We just have a crash that's imperative to part of the journey.
Yes. I like that.
So there
I
you
like
go.
that.
All right.
I like that. All right, you guys, we are coming up on the hour. I'm going to now get some hotline numbers for men, but right now I only have them for women. So listen, if you are in a domestic violence situation, if you know of someone that is in a domestic violence situation, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is always there. If you cannot dial 911, call Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233. We have our local facilities, the Family Place, 24-hour crisis hotline, 214-941-1991. Genesis Women's Shelter, 214-946-4357. One Safe Place of Tarrant County, 817-916-4323. Safe Haven of Tarrant County, 877-701-7233. Use those numbers. Help somebody. Again, I want to encourage you to please become a donor to Better Place Ministries. Go to the website. We have different amounts. We need your support. We need your help because we're trying to help as many men and women and children as we can. Listen, if no one has told you today, I love you. Be safe.
I just came to testify today to let you know that no matter where you are and no matter where you've been, that God can change you because he changed me. This is my testimony. There's been a change in me, a wonderful change in me. There's been a change in me, a marvelous change in me. Listen, I'm not perfect. I made mistakes, many regrets from some very dark days. But when I open my heart to you,